Hey, this is Steve Bell for the MedTech Mavericks podcast. And today I'm going to do a special, which is a super deep dive into the newly announced Da Vinci 5. So I think that this is a really important podcast that I'm doing in the field of surgical robotics. This is one of the biggest changes in the last decade. This is the big announcement of what Intuitive's worked on for over a decade. So I'm going to do a deep dive into every single thing that I know about it, that I've seen about it, that I've reviewed about it. And I'll try and help you to understand as well as I can some of the details about the Da Vinci 5. And so I'm going to use a mixture of video and presentations and images and try and get all the details that I can. And again, in the comments, write your questions and I will try and answer all the questions that I can in the comments. So what I'm going to start with today is a little bit of just running through some parts of their video, and then I'll do some really deep dives into the different parts of the video. And I do apologize it's a little bit because it is their video is kind of quite mixed up in some senses. It doesn't have a logical flow of what I would like to have done, but I'll follow the video and I'll give you all the information that I can and the insights that I've got.
Intuitive Da Vinci 5 is our most advanced and integrated system ever.
So, this is the opening of the video. Some gorgeous product shots there. Let me walk you through for those that haven't gone into a deep dive yet on the Da Vinci 5. At first glance, you may say, well, it actually looks like an XI, and it probably does a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through that now, and I'm going to show you some comparisons. So if you give me 1 second, let me jump in here. Okay, so here we've got side by side the Da Vinci 5 and the Da Vinci Xi. And what you'll see on here is you'll see basically that you have the boom system of the Da Vinci 5, which looks externally, and I will say that really clearly, externally it looks just like the Xi. And they've done that on purpose because the architecture, the reach, the movements that it does, they wanted them as similar as possible because A, they know it works in millions of procedures. But also from a regulatory point of view, it makes it a lot easier if your arms are the same. So on the outside, it is very similar. It's got a very similar footprint. It's got a very similar X boom at the top. The number of joints, remember, everything that I've seen so far are the same. The instrument interfaces look the same, all on the outside. There are some changes to the back, though, on something that's known as the Helm, which is the command system for how you actually control some of the functions of the boom. But basically, the boom is the same shape and size as the Xi. But I can guarantee you, and we'll talk in a lot of detail about this, that under the skin, there's going to be a huge amount of differences. And Gary and Dave Rosa talked about that today on the call that they had about the X5. So then you have the next important piece, which is the console. So here's the old Da Vinci Xi console with a large viewing screen at the top, very big, 10 years old, older screen technology. And here you have the new one. I'll go into details here, but this is much smaller, more compact console, looks more modern, and there's a lot of features in here as well that will be very, very different between the Xi and the Da Vinci 5. Then next to that, you've got the hub. That used to just sit sort of on the side of the old tower. That's now got its own little stand. The hub's important. That's some of their computational power that takes things like videos and it lets you annotate. And there's all kinds of information that comes onto the hub, and that shares that back out then to the My Intuitive app. Clear that the console and the boom are talking to the hub. And then for me, the biggest change is the tower. So here's the old tower with the components, sort of very old analog style looking components, a bit unfair. Smallish screen, but not a bad screen. But the tower is the big change. And I'm going to speak today in a lot of details about the tower and exactly why this. I think this is a massive game changer for Intuitive. So let me just jump in a little bit on the arms and I'll switch back to the video and we'll let that run a little bit and then I'll come back and talk a little bit more in detail on some of the arms and things. So I'll just power up the video.
System ever. It's going to transform surgery for surgeons, care teams, and patients.
Well, I've never seen anything like this before.
So force feedback is quite important. What they're doing is they're measuring forces that are on the instrument tips, on the instrument jaws, and in the actual arms of the robot to be able to sense that back to the surgeon so that they've got a sense of feel, which is going to be very interesting. And as Gary said today on the call, it's going to be controversial for some because a lot of people say you don't need it. But I've got my own feeling on that, and I've written that in one of my reports, which I think it does. I think it makes adoption of the system easier, faster, and I think that once you go haptic, you never go backtic, is the way that I say it. I think that anyone learning on haptic will find it very unusual to go back without haptic, and there is a premium pricing to the haptic instruments. You start get tiered level, and we'll talk about those again in a minute. I'll talk in a lot more detail about that. I've got some good images of that. So.
Force feedback is a first of its kind technology. In preclinical trials, we're seeing up to 43% less force on tissue. That translates to gentler surgery for patients.
Before, we relied on visual cues primarily, but now with feedback, it does give you that extra sort of sense.
It's not something I've seen with any other system. It's something we experience in open and laparoscopic surgery, but not robotic surgery.
We're going to be able to control so many more things from the surgeon console.
Okay, so a lot of people under the misconception that it's not been on any other systems before. As I say, it's been on the Senhance system before, but I think probably Intuitive have taken a decade to get this right because bad haptics is worse than no haptics. That's what's always been sold. So I think that's going to be important. Let's zoom in a little bit on some of the force feedback on the instruments and how they do that. So on the outside of the arms, it looks like it's basically all the same. And if you go here, and let me zoom in on this for you a little bit. Right, so you can see here you've got the same architecture of the arms. But what's going to be very different in here is, first of all the motors that are in these joints will be modern motors. These are at least 10 to 15 years old, the ones that are in the XI, just because it was designed back then. There's different gearboxes and motors and encoders and all kinds of electronics that go into these complex robotic arms that have improved dramatically in the last 10 years. So I think that's how they're going to get this, what they're talking about, which is much better, smoother, more tremor filtration. It's just going to be a much less vibration in this system because you've got modern motors in there. But what you've got besides the motors is also a lot more sensors. So they'll have a ton of sensors in the different gearboxes around the arms. So they'll have within these arms they'll have a lot of different gearboxes in here, but also up here in the motor drives for the instruments, there'll also be more sensors. So that's how they're going to get some of the feedback by feeling the amount of tension that's in the wires coming back to the instrument. I did note that the new instruments, by the way, the old instruments used to have a square button. They've now put a round one on. And again, this is probably just years and years of working out that users give this kind of feedback that they want. They probably didn't feel they could press the button as easily. So these are just small changes that have happened over time. And we'll talk about the force feedback a little bit now. So let me just talk a little bit on that. Let me come to some of the images that I've got down here. Let me find you an image of the force feedback. Okay, here we go. So what you'll basically see is that in the heads-up display, you're going to get a lot more information than they've had before so that you can keep your head in the cockpit as long as possible. And what you'll get in there is when it's got a force feedback, for example, here's the CADIA. It's got the force feedback in high mode on the right arm, on the right hand. So that's the right hand of the console, fourth arm of the Da Vinci, and you've got basically a force feedback CADIA forcep. And what they'll be able to do is they'll be able to measure things like pinch force here. They'll be able to measure the pinch force. They'll be able to measure the push force. You'll be able to feel the force that's going through the arm of this instrument, and probably how much force is being placed on some of these different wristed joints here. And then you'll be able to measure that force in push and pull, and probably in terms of when the instruments are squeezing together. So you'll be able to get some really good insights on that. So let's jump back and see what they say about that. Let's go back a little bit. Listen to that again.
It's not something I've seen with any other system. It's something we experience in open and laparoscopic surgery, but not robotic surgery.
We're going to be able to control so many more things from the surgeon console now, which I think is really important.
It's really an immersive experience that gives you a next level of control that you didn't have previously.
Okay, let's jump a little bit then into the console, because I think that's an interesting piece. So what you're going to see here on the console is, let's go back a little bit to the heads-up display. So they talk a lot about being inside the heads-up display. Let's get to that there. Okay. And what they're showing in here is, in the videos, that they're showing that you're going to get a lot of information that's going to be displayed inside that heads-up display. And let me jump into that a little bit and talk about that. So when you put your head into the console, excuse me 1 second. So basically, you'll put your head to look inside the viewfinder here, and we'll talk a little bit about how you maneuver that later. When you look inside here, you're basically looking through the screen. For those that don't know, when you see in 3D, there's a small, so looking through here, there's a small sensor here that when you put your head forward, you basically break contact of an infrared beam, and basically that's how it is a safety feature, so that you can only use the system while your head's inside it. When you're looking inside here, you want to get as much information as you can with the heads-up display. So it looks like what they've done is they've put a really nice interface. It does look very nice, so that you can see some of the things that are in here. And maybe I can try and wind that forward just a tiny little bit and then pause it.
It's really an immersive experience.
And what you'll also be able to see in there is a lot of the controls on things like the electrosurgery or the insufflation. You'll be able to control a lot of things without having to take your head outside of the console, which I think will be a really nice experience. That is one of the debates between whether or not you should have your head in the console or not, or whether it should be an open console. And we'll come to that again a little bit in a minute. As I say, it'll be a bit jumpy at the beginning because the video is going to jump all over the place. But I'm going to come back and then take each of these things in a lot of detail.
Experience that gives you a next level of control that you didn't have previously.
The ergonomics, the ability for me to move the headset where my head goes in and move it exactly where I want it to be in a variety of different positions. I think that really is going to help elongate my career and make surgery more comfortable.
Right, so let's really talk and dig deeper into the console. So they've put on there this ability now, so that the old XI, which is here, so the old XI was quite big, and it was sort of a very fixed position. And part of the original aim of the Da Vinci was that you looked forward, and if you were to take that screen away, your hands would have been exactly where they were. But I think what they've realized is, over the years, is that people can, like when you're driving a car, you can look up and drive your steering wheel down here, so it doesn't matter so much. The problem with this type of old XI way that it would be is that you basically end up for quite a few hours sitting there with your neck in this kind of position, and surgeons have complained about it. So what they've done now is they've made it so that the 4K screens, which this is 4K versus HD screens in here. So this 4K screen system, this is now on a boom, which allows you to pull it towards you as a user. And you can see that there's some controllers on the sides that the user uses. And it looks like that what you do is you go up and down and bring it towards you. And that just allows you to get into a very ergonomic position. So if you prefer your head to be a bit further down, you can have it further down. But if you prefer to sit with your head back up like this, then it allows you to do that. And that's important because you want to get the weight of your head above your neck so that you don't get neck pain. That's a really important thing on that. And yeah, they're pretty cool controllers to do that, to bring it towards you. But again, I still think there's a huge amount of the population that's going to want to have an open console, that's going to want to have an open screen in front of them. And I think the design of this could potentially allow you to do that in the future. I think you could get a screen on there in the future, maybe with some modifications of this boom system that comes off the console. For the rest of it, you've got a simplified armrest. You've got a very nice armrest with a small LCD display in there that you can see in there, and we'll see that in the video again in a minute. One of the cool features that I actually really did like, and kudos to them, is that they've put a wireless charger in here. And the reason I know that is because if you actually look right up at the top here, there is the charging symbol. So it looks like they've integrated a wireless charger into this armrest, and I think that's pretty cool. And actually, if you look even closer, you can't really see it here that well. I can see it on my screen, but here it looks like there's a USB-C cable connector as well that's in there. A couple of other things about the console while we're looking at it is that you've also got what it looks like speakers and microphone built in, because this is going to be about communications with the rest of the team in the OR. And we'll talk about that on the tower. And you've got your adjustments here so that you can adjust the rack and reach of the armrest, so you can get yourself in a really, really comfortable position. What else did I want to talk about very briefly on the console? Let me go into some details. Yes. So if you look here, there's been a big upgrade to the what these known as the haptic arms, or the controllers. So this is basically where they put their fingers in and they pinch to control this. And this has had a major upgrade. And if you have a look at the old Master Grip, they call it, the old Master Grips look, sorry to say, but they were just pretty ugly in the past. Again, 15 years ago, a lot of industrial design has come a long way since then. And these are just gorgeous. You know, they're all very curved and streamlined, look very, very nice. And they've also bulked up a little bit, because not only have you got in the motors there or the sensors to see what inputs you're putting into them, they've got to back drive. These have to be back driven quite hard, so that if I get resistive force on the instrument, I translate that through algorithms into hand movements in the Master Grips, and this is how I do it. Also, another change is they got rid of these what were really horrible sort of white Velcro thumb rings and finger rings that you could adjust and pull down, and obviously no one ever used them, and they just started looking really horrible and grubby after a while. And instead, they replaced them now with just some silicone rings, so that you can get the actual opening if you need to open it. But what you also get is just a little bit more comfort probably in there than having those Velcro rings around your fingers. So that is the majority of the console. So let's jump back to the video and let's watch them again, what they say basically on the console. Let's go back again.
The ergonomics, the ability for me to move the headset where my head goes in and move it exactly where I want it to be in a variety of different positions. I think that really is going to help elongate my career and make surgery more comfortable.
We are seeing Da Vinci 5's capabilities result in faster surgery.
So they mentioned this on the course, which was Miriam talked about the fact that in their preclinical data in the labs and in their IDE data, which is clinical data, they actually saw an improvement in time. And that's probably because this has got faster setup times. You'll see some things I'll show you a little bit more on the Helm in a minute, and some of the features. But you're not having to also put things together. When I talk about the tower, one of the clever things here is it's an integrated system, and that makes a big difference in setup times. Also makes a little bit of a difference in terms of userability as well. And it allows the surgeons now to start to control a lot of the things that before were previously different boxes that didn't talk to each other. And I'm going to talk about a lot about the tower, because I think that's one of the main things. So what you're seeing here is you're seeing basically what you would see on the intuitive hub. And they're really starting to bring a lot of information into that hub as well. And they call it the hub because you're going to get information from the boom, from the console, from the intuitive app. You'll get it from all of the tower, which is going to have a lot of sensors in it, even things like insufflation. They can get insufflation data now, and they're going to feed that all back to the users, either through the desktop or through the My Intuitive app, which is a really nice ecosystem they've put together there. Let's continue a little bit.
I think having the integrated new components will make the process of starting the case a lot more efficient.
The insufflator being in the...
Okay, so two things we saw there very briefly. Let me go here and get to the hub first. So on the back of these towers, you can see these handles. On the back of there is a little control panel called the Helm. And on the XI, the Helm looked like this, and it had a lot of physical buttons and a small touch screen. The new one has obviously physical stop button, on-off button, which is probably a requirement from regulatory. But then the rest of the controls have all gone to soft controls. And I want to dig into that because this is really an important thing that people maybe have not quite understood about the Da Vinci 5. They're moving heavily away from hardwired hard controls to software controls, buttons, because all those things can be changed over the next 10 years. So as you add new features or if you add new functionality, you don't have to change the hardware. You just change the software that changes the buttons on the screen. So it's a little bit like when you get your iPhone updated and you get new software on the iPhone. That is really going to help you to keep making changes over the next 10 years, which will be really important. So don't underestimate that change of the Helm on the back of the boom. I think that's a really important one. It's a cue to what you're also going to see on the tower. And you'll see that there is, there's actually a very rich, let's have a look, amount of information that is coming off that now. You're going to be able to control insufflation instruments. So now you've got the control ability of the surgeon sitting in the console, and you've got the control ability of the bedside staff stood at the side of the boom. That means they don't have to keep walking around the OR to go and touch things, then go back and then forward and go back. So that shaves off minutes from procedures in things like setup and tear down, or during a case when things need to change. You don't have to say to a nurse, oh, can you go and change the insufflation? And they walk across the operating room, they go to the insufflator, they change it to a setting and then walk back there. Instead, now the surgeon can do that straight from the console. Same with the energy device, so they can change the electrosurgery. There's no shouting across the OR. Can you just put that onto coag? Can you just put that onto a 40 setting? Can you just put that onto a B, or C? It's all either controllable from the tower, from the Helm, or from the console, and all on these software-driven buttons, which means that over the next 10 years, you'll be able to update functionality and systems within the hardware without having to change the hardware. And I think that's a really smart move. And it's very clear to me that there's a huge amount of functionality going on in this Helm, including all the setups. And if you look here, you can see that there's different setups for going towards the head, going towards the chest, going towards the abdomen. There's basically a whole bunch of setups that that basically mean that you can do things very fast. So what does that mean? It means if I set this up, the arms will move in a way automatically without me having to sit there and move each arm individually to get it ready for the case. And again, this all shaves off 30 seconds, 40 seconds. Okay, let's carry on with the video again.
The Vision Tower, just a huge thing.
We don't have multiple vendors within a tower.
Right. This is the biggie. This is the biggie. This is what I think is the game changer on the Da Vinci 5, or one of the main game changers. And what you're looking at here, by the way, is you're looking at the let me zoom in on this for you so that you can see this in a little bit more detail, because I want to really talk you through this. So basically on the tower, this is the main action area. So you've got a couple of speakers up here, got a power switch. Not worked out what this is fully yet, but it could be a room camera to look at the operative room. I suspect it could be. And here looks like the speaker. And the reason they've not put, the microphone, they've not put the microphone up there because they don't want to get probably the noise contamination from the insufflator. So on this side, you've got insufflation controls. And this is the big change, that you've got an integrated insufflator. And hopefully you'll notice that there's two tubes there. And the reason for that is you've got inflow and outflow, which means that this is a recirculating insufflator. And that's the sort of thing that's like an air seal. So you can have continuous flow and continuous suction. And generally, you can go up to 50 litres on most of the really high flow insufflators. What I noticed on one of the images was that it was at 40 litres max per minute. So it's 40 litres per minute. So it was like 0, 20 and 40, which is the standards, and then a high flow insufflation. And then you'll be able to also change all of the pressure settings. So this is I think 0, 20 and 40. And then you've got the pressure settings here. And then you've got standard mode. So there'll be a mode where you're measuring constant pressure. And then there'll be a mode where you're measuring flow, probably. Beautiful connector unit. And again, there's another little disposable for them. That's probably a disposable unit that you throw away. And that just slots in and connects in, as you saw in the video. Let's watch that again, because that was a nice little slot. I think they show you the slotting it in.
Just a huge thing.
Yeah.
You don't have.
So you saw how that was slotted in into there. Beautiful, simplified connector. You're not going to find two tubes and doing the different tubes and put it together and put all kinds of filters on. I bet this has got the filters built into it. Very neat design, very neat design. And anyone who's making something like an air seal should be very concerned about this, because you could probably use this for your laparoscopic as well. Then under there, you've got your connectors for your electrosurgery, and we'll talk about those in a little bit more detail in a minute, and your return pad. Nice cable management, again, beautiful. These are small things that really make the difference when you're in an operating room, to stop cable clutter and to stop. Also, it's strain relief as well, to stop if people trip on them, they don't yank them out of the machine, which is really, really clever. That is a really nice design there. And there's a lot of LED in that, and that's a lot of expensive LED. So they've had 10 years to do this, and they've really thought about the design really, really well. And just, some of the cosmetics of it as well are just absolutely beautiful. So then you've got your controls here for your energy. So you've got your bipolars and your monopolars, and you control the energy settings here. And I did notice in a few of the close-up shots, there were some very interesting energy modes in there. So if you look down here, and down here they have some very interesting energy modes that you could do, which is like automatic shut off and things like this. This is a very, very capable energy system. It's got really good monopolar, bipolar, but it's also got advanced energy, so that if you're looking at their synchroseal, this is a big challenge to somebody like a Valley Lab or an Urbe, a very big challenge. And if you can use that in laparoscopic as well, which I'll talk a little bit more about, I think they've designed this tower so it can be doing laparoscopic as well. And why do I say that? The footprint of robots is pretty big. And if I can, for example, look in here. So if I have to bring this in and I've already got a laparoscopic tower in the operating room, I've got to take that tower out. Or I have two towers in there, which is a lot of a footprint. And this is quite a big footprint. But now, if this can also be used as a laparoscopic tower, which I highly suspect it can, you've basically just reduced your footprint by about 33% of your system, which is a really clever move. And it also means I don't need to go and buy another tower for my laparoscopic cases, because I don't imagine that this can only be used with the robot. I can be wrong on that, but I'm almost 100% sure that the idea of this is to make a fully self-independent tower. Then you can start thinking about things like ASCs and outpatient departments, where instead of having two tower systems, you have just one tower system. Let's go back and look at a few more little details within the tower system. So you've got that custom insufflation that we talked about there, and you've got your energy adapters there. large touchscreen display. And that's, again, one of the most important things that I can't stress enough on, is that this is not hardware buttons. So depending what I'm connecting will depend the modality and the way it will work, just like your iPhone changes depending which app you're using. But it also means it's very future-proof, at least for a decade. It's going to be very future-proof because you don't have to update your hardware buttons if I want to add some extra functionality and features. It's just in software, and that's really, really smart. This is a game changer of a tower for everybody. Anyone who's running standard towers today is going to look archaic compared to this. And I'm sure that down here as well, they've got some drawers and things, but there's going to be a lot of compute power in this. This is where a lot of the compute power is. Then they've got a very nice screen, and I couldn't work out if this is a 3D screen as well as 2D, and I'd be a little. I think they might have allowed this to be a 3D, because again, when you're looking close on the screen, it's got a left and right toggle for which eye of the scope is coming through it, and I just wonder if you can just toggle both on at the same time. But that's a really, really nice design of the tower. Yeah, that was some of the things I was showing with the smart energy. That's low power with auto stop. So just very, very interesting. And then I want to bring your attention to something that I noticed in here. This, to me, down here, looks like a laser. And I can't decide, because I can't really read this. It says invisible laser radiation, but I can't see what class of laser it is. So I don't know if this, and it says laser up here, I'm sure. I did put this through some upscalers, but it didn't do much better than this. But it definitely looks like a laser here. And I wonder whether this is to do with an image laser to do things like laser speckle imaging, or whether this is actually going to be a laser, like a CO2 laser, so that they can, definitely looks like a laser to me. Could be wrong. But that would be amazing as well. Why is that important? Because if you're doing tenders or you're doing contracting, and they talked about this is a 30% more expensive piece of equipment for a hospital to buy versus an XI. So the DV is going to be 30% more expensive than the XI. But that's not the whole story, because it'll actually be less, because if you don't need to buy an insufflator, if you don't need to buy a laser, if you don't need to buy all the things that this comes with, you get the sim now with it, so you get the simulator with it. Interestingly, they announced that you also get the bed table motion in it as well, which is integrated. So the whole thing of integrated table motion is definitely going to be in there as well. You get a lot of features in there that are extras today that you pay for. So the real difference is, if you want to get a fully loaded XI with as close to as many features as you can, or you want a DV5, it's only a 15% differential. Quite a smart pricing strategy by Vinci there, by Intuitive. Let's continue a bit more with the video.
Multiple vendors within a tower, we literally can offer everything that we need for the patient under one umbrella.
I think it will make rooms more organized, so helps with the staffing problem that we have, and also helps to reduce the cost.
Da Vinci 5 will help surgeons unlock.
Okay, won't get into the data at the minute, but you see where they're going with the messaging, which is we reduce costs, we make much better workflow. And I see this starting to target to lower and lower acuity procedures and lower acuity settings. And I think the tower is the game changer in this. And again, if I was Olympus, or I was Storz, or I was Wolf or Stryker, anyone selling towers, I would be pretty much terrified by this at the minute, because every time they buy a Da Vinci 5, they do not need to buy another tower. And that's going to come into some of the pricing differentials that you're going to talk about later. So it's 30% more than XI if you look at all the hardware, but when you look at all the add-ons that you would have to buy, it's genuinely a 15% differential, 15% differential versus the XI, which is what Gary talked about. And if you're really looking at it, and this could save you buying another laparoscopic tower, and I really hope they do allow this to be used in just laparoscopic surgery with a handheld Da Vinci camera, then that would be really interesting. Now, a little bit of the elephant in the room, they didn't go into this too much, was the imaging systems. And they've kept very quiet about this. They just talked about the fact that the console has a very upgraded screen, which means 4K. I'm telling you, it's 4K. I'm sure of it. But they didn't talk much about the imaging. Now, what's interesting here is that you might say they've done all this beautiful integration, and then you've plonked on the top of this a camera and a light box. Don't be fooled by that. That's a very clever piece of engineering. So this is a standard. This looks like the ICG version of their intuitive vision system today, which is HD, ICG, black and white, which is the Firefly, which is just black and white with a green overlay on it. Rapidly down here, but again, for regulatory, if you wanted to try and do Firefly upgrades, you wanted to do all your imaging upgrades and everything at the same time, it's a lot of things to try and get through the FDA in one go. So instead, what I think they've done is they've tried to break the elephant down and put it into bite-sized chunks. So do your imaging later, and there's going to be lots of imaging upgrades coming over the next couple of years because everyone's moving to 4K. ICG with color overlay, which means that you can see full color image and your ICG overlays on top of it. So like Pinpoint from Stryker, for example, is a great example of that. There's one from Arthrex. There's a couple of them out there. And these are all going to come pretty rapidly with more 510Ks. And what that means is that these units, if they were embedded, if these were part of this system in here, you'd have to go in and you'd have to break out the vision systems to take them out and replace them with others. Instead, this is cute. What you've done is you've got basically the vision systems which you can upgrade really easily by just coming and replacing these boxes. So you can just take these boxes off and put the new ones on. So now you can upgrade very quickly and very rapidly to ICG, 4K, white light, hyperspectral, laser speckle. There's all kinds of systems coming down the road, and they've made it so that the main tower is 10 years proof, and including the fact that you've got rapid changeability within the thing that's going to change probably the fastest, because your insufflator won't change that much. Your energy systems won't change that much. That's really a lot more to do with software. But these boxes are going to change pretty soon. So very clever that they have put them on the outside so that they're really easy serviceable to take on, take off. You could even imagine that during a case, you could decide, well, actually, I don't want the full hyperspectral today. I just want the standard. So you could basically just have the standard one that's on there. So basically what you've got is you've got these boxes that are just very interchangeable on the top, so that if you've got hyperspectral or you've got new ICG or you've got different things coming, basically you just have to switch those boxes off the top and you don't have to disrupt the main tower. So again, if you're an imaging company that's out there, I would be really, really afraid, because they're going to come after your Rubinas and stuff pretty hard. And I just can't imagine that they wouldn't allow that to all be handheld. And again, you have to remember there's a giant computer in the middle of this, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. We're going to talk about the 10,000 times computing power in a minute, but there's a computer in there as well. So if you were to do laparoscopic with this tower, you get all the image analysis stuff, you get all the case data stuff, you get all the insufflation data, the energy settings. You start collecting masses of rich data even out of laparoscopy, and that's why I'm convinced that they will go down the laparoscopy route handheld with this tower. Final thing on the tower I just want to pop into very quickly is the screen, and it is a nice screen, but it definitely looks to me, again, yeah, it looks to me like this could be a 3D screen, but lots of functionality, lots of information that you get in the heads-up display that you also get up on the screen. Nice big screen, and also a lot of real estate over here for stuff that we haven't probably seen yet. Probably a lot of data going to be displayed there that they've not told us about yet. But the integrated table motion and everything and the heads up of the table can all be seen in here as well. So there's just lots of information on this screen. Very nice screen. Let's jump back to the video. Let's go back a little bit.
we have and also helps to reduce the cost.
Da Vinci 5 will help surgeons unlock new answers to surgical techniques and patient outcomes with unique and granular data. Da Vinci 5 connects more data than any other platform that I'm aware of and allows physicians and their administrators to link them to patient outcomes.
This opens up.
So, as I've said in a lot of my other blog posts, data analytics and the connected data system is going to be absolutely crucial in the coming years. So let's dive in a little bit into the data systems that they're going to show. So again, and we'll talk more about force feedback in a minute, but all that data that's coming off the instruments, this is all going to be very rich. You're going to stick it then through this compute power, 10,000 times compute power, by the way. I mean, my laptop's nearly 10,000 times more powerful than it was 15 years ago. So yeah, kudos for the marketing. But what you're going to do is you're going to take that force feedback data, and now you're going to start bringing that force feedback data into your data stream. So this is an additional data set that they're going to have that no one else is going to have, is looking at how much force you applied and therefore then linking it to the local outcomes that they're able to look at, and procedure times and whether there's extra bleeding and things like this. What they're also going to be able to do is to map that out. And this is, you know, they're not the only ones who've got the capability to do this, but it looks like they're giving it back now to look at instrument plots. So you're looking at basically, you know, how accurate you are, the size of your instrument movements, whether you're a novice. And AI can look at all this and analyze your left hand versus right hand, your different instruments you use, compare it to the rest of the world. And what it can do is it can start giving you insights back. A couple of companies looking at doing this. They're not the only ones, but they seem to be the ones who've got it all the most together at the minute. And then finally, what they're going to start doing is bringing that all together in a very rich set of data streams. So you're looking at force on the instruments, you're looking at the amount of energy pedals that you're using, you're looking at your amount of endoscopic clutching that you're doing, hand control of clutching count. So you're starting to get this whole set of data that will come together as a big jigsaw to start giving people insights onto their movements, etc. So all of this data is going to come back together, and then what they're going to do is they're going to feed that back to you through the My Intuitive app, which they're going to talk a little bit about.
And opportunity for years of innovation and years of things that are going to come next.
I can't wait for surgeons to get their hands on this.
Now we have a platform, an approach to do minimally invasive.
Okay, this is one little thing that I'm going to pull them up on. So they've spent 10 years making this. They have, this was not good. So I'm going to zoom in on this. They've done a gorgeous marketing job all the way through this. Really, really nice. Do feel like there's a little bit of the CMR in there in terms of the marketing style. Just want to take some kudos there. But basically, how this escaped through their marketing is a little bit beyond me. They've got sort of some drape cap system that's in here that's just sort of been torn off. So you spent all that money and then it looks like you've got a really torn and jagged drape cap interface because you don't want to show the arm all draped. But there's just something really weird about that, the whole way that is, and it just looks pretty ugly. So you've done all that good work and then you've kind of fallen a little bit there. Don't want to say too much there because marketing people can do this all the time. I've done worse in my time, but I just wanted to point that out just in case they want to change that on the video because that's just a little bit of a little bit ugly on the instrument there. Let's go again.
Now we have a platform, an approach to do minimally invasive surgery that is beyond anything that we could have seen in those incremental improvements. And that is what's giving us the magnification, the stability, dexterity, ergonomics, precision, all of which are key for us to be able to provide the highest quality minimally invasive surgery that we can to our patients.
We don't want to be behind in medicine. We need to be ahead. And that's what's really exciting about this next generation.
Okay, this is where we're starting to get into some of the marketing side now. So there was a little bit of criticism of Intuitive for a while that with the XI because it was a little bit dated. that they were falling a bit behind compared to some of the other systems that were coming through there. So I think that what they've done here is they've leapfrogged. They've gone massively ahead with the Da Vinci 5. And they've also future-proofed it for at least the next 10 years. And Joe Mullings might say it's 5 years. So he could be right on that. But I think it's about 10 years of future-proofing that they're putting into this. And it's really about them trying to take the lead again. And what does this mean for a lot of companies? I mean, if you're a Da Vinci clone, if you're one of the clones that tries to look like this, smell like this, and act like this, you've just been leapfrogged by two jumps. And you can't underestimate the fact that they got broad clearance for this, except for pediatrics and cardiac, which I don't think they care that well. They care about it, but it's not the majority of their money coming from that. The fact that they've got clearance in the FDA with this is massive, broad clearance, because anyone who's coming through with their own system at the minute, be it a clone, be it a competitor, they're going to get narrow clearances. What does that mean for those that don't know? It means that basically everything that you can do with an Xi today, you can do with a Da Vinci 5 tomorrow. It's just there. Whereas when other people come, they'll only be able to do maybe some lap chole, maybe a hernia, maybe a prostate, maybe 2 or 3 of those procedures, but it's not for every single procedure. So that's a big problem, because if you're a hospital and you're using an Xi today for 20 procedures and the new system comes out and you can only use it for 3 procedures, there's just no sense for you to buy it. So the downside is that they've kept the Xi and the DV5 very similar in terms of, and I'll talk about my downsides on that in a minute. But from a regulatory point of view, it's brilliance. And from a parts bin, it's brilliance. From a knowing that it'll be able to do exactly what they say it can do, it's brilliance. From a really going hard into somewhere like an ASC or a different site of care, I think that they've probably got something else in the bag ready to go on that, should they need to do it, because it's still a little bit too big for some sites of care. But again, the way that they've tried to basically get around that is through the tower. You know, I think that if they've done the right strategy and they've got that as a laparoscopic tower as well, it means 1/3 footprint reduction. You can start getting into outpatient apartments and ASCs and clinics, and it starts making some sense. The whole thing about this as well is really about workflow. So again, when I talk about the Helm and the touch screen and all-in-one of the tower, this is all about not only speeding up workflow, but it's also about making it easier to use, less complex to use. They mentioned today that your Delta training, which is the training you have to do if you want to go from an Xi onto a Da Vinci 5, instead of going away for a couple of days and having to retrain again, you can actually do most of your training in the hospital. And that's really powerful. That's a big gain for them. And it's probably just very intuitive in terms of how you set it up and how you use it. And there's going to be a lot of software in there that's going to help people to do the setup. You know, I was definitely looking at some of the Helm graphics, and the more I was looking into it, the more I could see that there's a lot in here about setup, perioperative movements, and tear down. And the fact that you've got things like table motion built in to this system, i.e. it's available, it's not an extra that you have to get. They obviously think that can also help. So in certain sites of care, you know, emergency settings or certain sites of care, you've got limited staff, or you may not have as staff who are super specialists as robotic trained. So what this allows to do is this probably allows you to broaden the caregivers that can use this system quite easily. And I think that that's super important for being able to get this into different sites of care. So they're definitely aiming at going to lower acuity places, helping with staff flow. When you help with staff flow, you help with workflow, you give everyone data. The concept is that what you'll be able to do is you'll be able to reduce costs because you reduce time. And generally, you know, for the whole patient episode, which Gary always talks about, reducing that cost. Do I think it can do it? Potentially, yes. So let's go back and look at another couple of little bit more of the video, just the final part of the video. Nice. But going to stop there. Transforming surgery for good. Surgery transformed. Again, marketing, small marketing thing. Don't know if they did that on purpose. It's a homage. I didn't know whether they probably didn't realize it. Probably they don't recognize. I don't know. But basically, that was one of the only things that I wasn't so impressed with there. So let me run through this again very quickly with you to go through it. And now showing you some of the details, it should make a little bit more sense. So let's go through this and go in the order that they go in. And let's see whether we can sort of follow this again now a bit more. Nice LED work.
Intuitive Da Vinci 5 is our most advanced and integrated system ever.
Agree.
It's going to transform surgery for surgeons, care teams, and patients.
Now, interesting. Gary says quite rightly that he's not on about transforming robotic surgery. He believes that this just becomes ubiquitous. He believes that this just becomes the standard of care everywhere, that you have this sort of thing. So he doesn't think in the next 10 years, and I agree with him totally, that we will be talking about robotic surgery or we'll be talking about surgery, and this is just it's in there as one of the choices that you have in your armamentarium for doing surgery.
Well, I've never seen anything like this before.
I've seen things like before, like the XI from the outside. It's what's under the skin that I think is really the thing that she's trying to say that's the really important thing. And there we go, force feedback. Not the first, but probably will be the best one on the market at the minute.
Feedback is the first of its kind technology. In preclinical trials, we're seeing up to 43% less force on tissue. That translates to gentler surgery for patients.
Before, we relied on visual cues primarily, but now with feedback, it does give you that extra sort of sense.
It's not.
I think force feedback will be a game changer. I think it'll make people adopt the system faster. And I also think there's a huge amount of laparoscopic surgeons who have resisted robotics. And I think that this now, with the mixture of the data, the analytics, and the force feedback, is going to be the thing that's going to eventually get them to say, okay, well, I can use it for some cases. And I think they're going to jump forward and use it for some cases. And I think this is going to bring a whole new raft of surgeons, especially the ones that have held out for years and years, to come across. I think that the force feedback is going to be way more than people think in many respects.
Something I've seen with any other system. It's something we experience in open and laparoscopic surgery, but not robotic surgery.
We're going to be able to control so many more things from the surgeon console now, which I think is really important.
It's really an immersive experience that gives you a next level of control that you didn't have previously.
The ergonomics.
And I mean, that is a gorgeous. I mean, it just looks so fluid. You talk about, these are very expensive systems, and when you put that kind of, it's not a big clunky manual adjust. Things going up and down. I mean, it just looks very, very smooth. Be good to know if that actually is how it actually translates to the reality. But it's beautiful. Even the LED work, again, these are expensive things to put in, but they're the small design features that you can just see that you've had a lot of engineers and a lot of R&D dollars. One quick thing I will point out is that on the back of that console, let me see if I can just show you this, just so that let me see if I can find this for you, the picture that I was looking for. There it is. Let me just zoom into this a second. So you can see on the back of there's the hooks. So I think that's the Sim Now. So I don't think they've built the Sim Now into this. I don't think so. I think this is still just the haptics that are in there. And I think the Sim Now, I think, just still hangs on the back of this when you want to put the simulator on. But it definitely talks through all the analytics, and probably the force feedback also talks. So you get force feedback simulation in the Sim Now as well.
Ability for me to move the headset where my head goes in and move it exactly where I want it to be in a variety of different positions. I think that really is going to help elongate my career and make surgery more comfortable.
Ergonomics is massively, it is really, really important. I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of the ones who've held out against robotics so far are going to come across eventually, because they want to prolong their careers, and having good ergonomics within a robot is really important for prolonging careers.
We are seeing Da Vinci 5's capabilities result in faster surgery, which translates to our customers' ability to do more surgeries in a day.
I think having the integrated new components will make the process of starting the case a lot more efficient.
Listen to it again. All that integration makes it much more efficient. You don't have to go and find different bits and components. It's all there. It all opens in a pack, and it's just faster and easier. And everything from one single setting system, one touch screen, is you're going to be able to just get everything going really, really fast.
The insufflator being in the vision tower is just a huge thing.
We don't have multiple vendors within a.
And you can see there that that's 0, 20, and it looks like either 0, 30 and 40, but it's high flow anyway. And the other interesting thing about there, you can see on the screen, maybe you can't read it, is smoke evacuation. What's interesting about that is that now that you've got your electrosurgery unit talking to the smoke extractor unit, when you fire your electrosurgery, you're going to generate smoke, right? So automatically you can send signals between the two systems. That's the beauty of integration, where it can start to talk to each other. And there's an auto mode there, which just means that you can clear that smoke out and keep your vision as good as possible, automatically. That shouldn't be underestimated, that all the components now talk to each other.
Tower, we literally can offer everything that we need for the patient under one umbrella.
Still think that's a laser. I still think it's a laser. Someone please tell me if it's a laser. Someone from Intuitive, please tell me if it's a laser or not. It's driving me mad.
I think it will make rooms more organized, so helps with the staffing problem that we have, and also helps to reduce the cost.
Da Vinci 5 will help surgeons unlock new answers to surgical techniques and patient outcomes with unique and granular data.
What they don't talk about here on the computing power is also the preoperative, perioperative image analysis. So you'll be able to bring in things like CAT scans, MRI scans, and you'll be able to actually start integrating those into the system. And I wouldn't be surprised if they haven't got enough ready-going future power in there to do a few things. One is for boundary recognition of tissue, to look at instrument recognition, instrument tip recognition, and to start creating no-fly zones. I imagine that that's already baked in through their computing power, ready for the next couple of years. But that's a regulatory issue more than a technical issue today. So as they get regulatory clearances and approvals over the next years, I think they'll be able to keep this system, the DV5, very fresh for at least the next 5 years, Joe Mullings, or maybe 10 years. It could be more.
Da Vinci 5 connects more data than any other platform that I'm aware of, and allows physicians and their administrators to link them to patients.
Administrators is going to be important as well. DV5, the more information you give to the administrators in the future, it's going to be table stakes for anybody that you're able to say about usage, utility, usability of your system, and be able to give data back to the administration on a case-by-case basis. Interesting thing, I think the model, and they talked about it here, 70% are on leases now. So we're going to be 100% leases soon. So if you're coming out with a new robot into this market, you better be prepared and have enough money in your bag to lease it or do on a pay per case procedure and hold that capital and not be able to get that capital on your books for 4 or 5 years, because that is just the way that this is going, I'm afraid, for everybody. And I think I was part of driving it that way. But it makes sense. It really makes sense. And they talked a lot today about, and I guessed this a couple of months ago when people were asking me, well, what would you do with all the XIs? Well, they're going to roll this out, beta launch over 2024, full launch in 2025. So if you go into Sages or anywhere, you can go and see this system. They announced that today. What does that mean for the XIs? Well, you'll buy it on a lease today with an upgrade package, probably, so that when the DV5 is more widely available in 2025, you'll be able to upgrade your XIs. Those XIs then come back into the company, and those XIs can be used where either people don't want a DV5 at the 15% premium, or they want to take them to countries that have not got regulatory approval for the XI yet, for the Da Vinci 5 yet. So there's going to be a massive outlet market for the old XIs for sure, for many, many years to come. And I think a lot of the technology is going to get also slowly drift into that. I mean, why wouldn't you use that same tower with the XI eventually, or with the SP eventually? Then you could have the same tower, potentially the same console, use that with the SP, the XI, and the Da Vinci 5, and the X probably. And remember, all the instruments are interchangeable. The XI instruments can all be used on the DV5. Smart, very, very smart. They will struggle a little bit more on the 6 instruments that they've got from the for the force feedback, which will be needle holder, will be Cadier, Maryland, probably a standard grasper. I don't know what the other two would be for their force feedback, probably some different graspers. But basically, they're going to cost a lot more to make, but there will be a premium cost to those. And they said there'd be like a 9% uplift of cost within a case. But this is good. This is a really good, now you're getting the platinum, gold, silver, and bronze levels of instruments, and you're getting, which is what I predicted a couple of months ago, and for systems as well. So now you're going to give lots of choices, and then you're going to have a great secondary market over in countries that have not got the Da Vinci 5 yet, or those that don't want to buy the Da Vinci 5 yet. You've got a big outlet for the Xi. Remember, when you've already sold it into somebody that's used it, the cost of that's already sunk, so it's already gone off your books. You don't worry about that too much. That goes to somebody else. It's just a great model. It's a beautiful model that's done. And you can do that when you've got an 8,000 base. You can do that. That's one of the things that they've got as a moat. Sorry, I'm waffling here, but I think this is a game changer for the industry. I think the Da Vinci 5 is a game changer for the industry.
Outcomes.
This opens up an opportunity for years of innovation and years of things that are going to come next.
I can't wait for surgeons to get their hands on this.
Now we have a platform, an approach to do minimally invasive surgery that is
You can't unsee that now on the instrument, can you? I know.
beyond anything that we could have seen in those incremental improvements. And that is what's giving us the magnification, the stability, dexterity, ergonomics, precision, all of which are key for us to be able to provide the highest quality.
So a lot of the systems are going to bring that. So one of the things that I'll talk about I'll actually do another video on this, is what can the other companies do about it? And there's a lot of great things in the Da Vinci 5, amazing stuff. But I think they've also got a couple of weaknesses in here. One of it being that they've still got the same mass of the boom, and the same architecture of the boom is a benefit. But at the same time, for those that want an open console and those that want to have freedom of port placement because of the architecture, I think that that's a place where, again, if I was out there competing against them, that's what I'd be looking at doing. I'll do another podcast on that one.
Minimally invasive surgery that we can to our patients.
We don't want to be behind in medicine. We need to be ahead, and that's what's really exciting about this next generation.
Very nice. So that's more or less what I'm going to do today. I'm just going to look through my slides and see if there's anything that I particularly wanted to cover of anything else. So I think I covered everything on the console for you. The different adjustment commands there. Again, got a little select screen there that you can do different functionality. It's just like touch screens all over this thing. I do like that. I mean, the charger, putting the charger in there is cool. Ergonomics is great. They also talked about this also for pregnant surgeons as well. One thing I'll give a lot of kudos to Intuitive for is that they think about the female surgeons a lot. It's I think Miriam has probably a big say in that, but I think Gary also understands it as well. As a company, they do work out that the robot is a leveler for female surgeons as well, from just pure physicality. And I think that that's one of the big things, because there's more and more surgeons, more females are in surgeons, especially things like gynecology. There's a huge percentage of female surgeons. It's just brilliant that the robot is really designed with them in mind. Yeah, the heads-up display and the different orientations, the scopes, 30 up, 30 down. Yeah, they are just very nice hand controllers. I always had an issue with their old hand controllers. I think they just look clunky and they look like something off an old submarine. But now, when you have the periscope and then you have the hand controllers. So now you've got basically a beautiful set of master grip controllers that they will have a lot more tremor smoothing, vibration smoothing, and just a whole host of feedback power in them. That's just going to be really, really interesting to see how they feel. I want to get on it. Gary, invite me to come and get on the Da Vinci 5. I'd love to try it out. Tower, for me, the game changer, and the insufflation smart move to put that in there. the giant touch screen, soft buttons, not hard buttons. It's the future. And I think this could be a really good laparoscopic tower. Would love to know in the comments if you think they'll ever do that. And if they do, they could easily make handheld instruments that plug into this. They could make handheld synchroseal, they could make handheld Sureform that would plug into these things. So that'll be interesting to see. And it is just a gorgeous display. It's basically like a Tesla display built into this. Just looks really great. Beautiful cable management, as we said. Laser, I'm pretty sure there's a laser going to be in there. Imagine that, though, for your marketing. Robots and lasers. What a great marketing combination that would be. And yeah, and the external vision system box is smart move. As your vision upgrades and you get ICG and you get hyperspectral and you get all the different things that you're going to put on this. And I know they've got ICG today, but I'm talking full color ICG and different colors for different compounds and all that kind of stuff coming in. Vision upgrades, a go-go. Having the box on the outside, I think, is a smart move by their engineers. So kudos to the engineers over there. And the intuitive hub on a stick. Force feedback is going to be a game changer. I think it's going to be more of a game changer than people think. But let's see. Let's see how the data rolls in. And then the compute power and the data, all very, very exciting. So that's it from me today. I hope that's been useful. Again, put in the comments if there's anything that I've sort of missed or you'd like to hear more about. Happy to do lots more videos. They do take me a while to do these, but to do all the research and ready for them. But yeah, if you want to know more about the Da Vinci 5, you can book my time as well. Remember, you can book my time. That's one thing you can do. Book me half-hour, 1-hour session. And I will go deeper into everything that I know. Just a reminder, this is all public information. This is information I've gleaned from public sources. I wouldn't be making investments based on what I'm saying. You'd be a bit of a fool to do that. I don't know anything more than anybody else that's out there. There's nothing secret that I know about. It's just really trying to put my wisdom together. I hope you enjoy it. And again, I hope to catch you on the next one. And if you like this, please give me a like. Please help me on LinkedIn, because that will really help me to realize that I should do more of these sessions. And I hope it's helpful for everyone. So thank you, and I'll catch you next time.